Hello there. I really hope you're going to join us for our new workshop, Building Inclusive and Innovative Teams. This is a workshop for D&I professionals, for HR, people and culture professionals, for team leaders, and for all those who have an interest in building not only inclusion, but innovation in teams. In just 2.5 hours, you'll learn practical tips, tools and techniques that you can use right away to start building innovation and inclusion in your teams. So please join us. It's going to be a fun 2.5 hours. There'll be time for breaks, but I guarantee you will learn an enormous amount about how to build inclusive and innovative teams. We'll see you there.
So when I started coaching back in 2010, it was quite a journey for me because before that, I was a marketing strategist, I was doing sales, I was in HR as well, and trying to discover who I really was as a person and how I could contribute to this world. And I felt that with all those 3 jobs, it wasn't it yet. When I discovered coaching, I finally realized that this was it for me, the description of coaching, of what it was, of how it was going to help a lot of people. I really liked it and I felt that that was truly me. And about 3 years ago, I decided to intentionally just look at who I was as a person, who I was as a coach. It started with asking people what they thought of me. The most difficult thing about having a service or me as a product is look at who I was. And I felt that the best people who knew me were my clients. I saw that there were patterns in what they were saying. I saw that they were saying that I was able to help them in difficult situations, complex situations. I was able to uncover things about themselves, get to find out the triggers or how they would operate and come up with really clear solutions that were measurable. I saw that the common thing was being able to help teams and leaders uncover their blind spots. And so that's what brought me to what I stand for today. I'm able to transform leaders positively and help them make better decisions with the organizations that they lead. So if you look at it right now, it's a cube with the initials CNA. So you have to look at it very carefully. CNA stands for Coach Anda, that's me. And why is it a cube? Because cube is like a Rubik's Cube. It is a puzzle that I like to play with also. I could never solve, but I'd like to relate it to like a people puzzle. So people can get really complicated, complex, or sometimes we also don't know ourselves. We don't know how the environment is affecting us or triggers. As a person who can solve people puzzles, I help you see clearly what the patterns are, how to form that puzzle and make all the pieces fit to make sense out of what's happening. And when you're able to see that clearly, then you'll be able to know how to navigate difficult situations. So when I started
Hi, I am Curly De Guzman, a career and leadership coach. I believe that your career doesn't just start and end with finding a job and achieving professional milestones. I believe that your career is an evolving masterpiece. It's a beautiful story of nurturing and harnessing the greatness that is already within you. It's about doing work that is meaningful to you and that contributes to a higher purpose. You deserve a career that doesn't just pay the bills, but also fills the heart. I too was once a corporate employee and leader, learning the ropes and navigating through my career. I too had to go through changes and challenges in the evolving world of work. I too went through my own career transition and experienced outplacement myself. I've been there, and I'm here to help you. As a professional certified coach by the International Coaching Federation and a certified master in career services by the National Career Development Association, you are assured of competence, expertise, and compliance to a strict code of ethics. I am here to support you through the changes and challenges of your career. I am here to support you through your transitions. I am here to support you in intentionally discovering, nurturing, and harnessing the greatness in you. I am here to support you in co-creating solutions that are sustainable for your career. I am here to create a safe space where you can be you and explore the greatness that you already have within. I look forward to working with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are very happy to see you join us today in our third LinkedIn Local Philippines virtual event, our first for this year, 2022, creating team psychological safety at work. I'm Christine Cecilia, Marketing and Lead Generation Specialist of BB Consulting and one of your moderators for tonight. I will be joined by Miss May Quezon of MC Productions. Miss May?
Yep. Thank you, Christine. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are watching us. And it's my pleasure. It's nice to see you all and also the familiar faces. I believe I have virtually met some of you during the Top 100 awarding last December. And I'm so happy to be joining again today. For those who have not met me, well, I'm May, podcast producer and podcast manager helping entrepreneurs and coaches. And I am excited. I want to know where you are joining us from. Christine, let us ask the people here. Can you type in your location in the chat? Where are you coming from? Oh, from Singapore.
All over the globe. Singapore.
Yes, Christine.
From Palawan also. That's quite far. And even Nigeria.
Marge Tejada from Ifugao. Wow. Hello.
Fandi from South Africa.
People from Tarlac. Wow, it's very fast, Christine. From Quezon Province. Liberty from Zamboanga del Sur. Can you read some more, Christine?
Yes, we have one from Batangas. Rafi from Bacolod City. Rai from Baguio. And Dumaguete also, the city of gentle people. Hi, Pai.
Hello, everyone. And from Metro Manila, the capital city of the Philippines. Yeah, we are greeting you all and a very, very warm welcome to all of you. So I think we have an icebreaker, Christine, right?
Yeah, so maybe have an icebreaker question before we begin the program.
Yep. So Guys, do you feel free to speak up, to express your opinion, raise issues, and suggest better ways of doing things without the fear of being punished or ridiculed in your workplace? So if yes, please type yes. If no, please type no in the chat box.
I'd
Yes.
like to know your answers, guys. Yes, most of the answers are yes.
Yes. Oh, that's a very good news. So there was a need.
Tyron says it depends on the relationship you have at work. Thanks, Tyron.
Thank you, everyone. How about you, Christine? Do you have questions prepared?
Yes, I definitely have a lot of questions, but I'll try if I can still squeeze it in, because I know that our participants are quite ready with all their questions. But before that, we would like to call in our host this afternoon, whose initiatives have made us all gather today to learn more about psychological safety in the workplace. She's the founding host of LinkedIn Local Philippines, the creator of Top 100 Filipinos in LinkedIn, and the founder and chief content strategist of VB Consulting, Ms. Virginia Bautista.
Thank you so much, Christine. And I am super excited to be bringing with you today a panel of experts so that we can talk about psychological safety in the workplace. But let me please allow me first to introduce LinkedIn Local Philippines to all of you. Can you see my screen right now? So I have to shift.
Yes.
So LinkedIn Local is actually a global movement that started in Australia, and it was founded or started by Anna McAfee. And she has other co-founders from the UK, from the US, and from Belgium. And since they are in my network, when I saw them posting about LinkedIn Local or hashtag LinkedIn Local, I became interested. So I reached out to Anna and I ended up talking to her teammate. And since then, I have started organizing, hosting LinkedIn Local here in the Philippines. But LinkedIn Local has only one very simple aim or goal, and that is to bring people together, or to bring together people behind their LinkedIn profiles. I'm sure that you are familiar with everyone you see on LinkedIn every day. Many of my connections are here. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure you engage with each other's posts. And I'm sure as well that you haven't met everyone in your LinkedIn network. And LinkedIn Local is actually a perfect venue for us to see each other and, just talk about what matters in the industry, in the workplace, and even in our career and businesses. So I want to make it short. I started LinkedIn Local Philippines in December 2021. You will see it's a very casual one. There are only 13 of us. Again, the goal of LinkedIn Local really is for a face-to-face event, but because of the pandemic, we can't do that. But I'm hoping that by April, we can go back again to doing face-to-face LinkedIn Local events. So from that first one, we had several other LinkedIn Local events here in the Philippines. And there are other LinkedIn Local hosts as well. So we had LinkedIn Local Clark, LinkedIn Local Angeles City, LinkedIn Local Subic, Makati, BGC, and we also had, you will see here on the slide, we also had LinkedIn Local Campus Tour. So we used to go to campuses, universities, and schools and bring a panel of experts to help students or future professionals. And today I am super excited because Christine and May are here with us. So we want to bring experts, we want to open the conversation. And I am super interested, personally, I am super interested in learning more about psychological safety. I remember I read an article from Timothy Clark before, and he said that the interest in psychological safety has actually exploded because of the pandemic. I became curious, so I went to Google Trends. If you're familiar with Google Trends tells us the most searched or the most popular search terms. And I found out that the term psychological safety is a highly searched term here in the Asia Pacific region, and number one in the list of people or country searching for psychological safety is the Philippines. And I see that we have experts. We have experts from LinkedIn And I want to take advantage of this opportunity. They're very busy, Peter Brace, Anda, Curly, and Tony, but they allowed us, they said yes to us. So thank you so much to our panelists. Let me say thank you so much. And to all of you joining us today, make this an opportunity for you to ask questions. And I assure you that today's event is a psychologically safe space for you to speak up. So let's enjoy the conversation. Welcome to this afternoon session.
Thank you so much, Ms. V, for gracing us with the opening remarks. And most of all, thank you for making this event possible. I'm joining you in thanking everyone present here right now, most especially our guests, panelists. I know everyone is busy, but yes, thank you for all your support. Okay, so psychological safety, the term has been creating followers this past several months, or the past couple of years maybe, because of the pandemic. Well, you probably already know or have an idea of what the term means. If you were to ask me what psychological safety is based from my conversations with Dr. Peter Brace, I'd say that psychological safety is being able to speak up. Speak up by means of sharing your innovative ideas, even questioning the ideas of your leaders, and being able to bring your whole self to work without having the fear of being humiliated or reprimanded. But those are my own words. Tonight, we will be learning directly from our guest panelists, our experts, what psychological safety really is and how it affects our work. Tonight, we will learn why psychological safety is important and why should we care. We will learn what are the roles of a leader in creating psychological safety in teams, and how the psychological safety affects career growth, and also how the psychological safety look like in those organizations that are certified great places to work. So I won't keep this long. I know you prefer to see our guests talking and not me, so here they are. May I please do the honor to introduce our first guest panelist?
Yes. Thank you, Christine. And we would like everyone to please mute your microphone. Okay, so our speakers will be able to deliver their lectures smoothly. Okay, our first panelist, it is my honor. He is a psychological safety consultant. He is the CEO at Human Capital Realization. He's accredited professional in connecting psychological safety with business performance by Conductor Software Business Performance. And he helps organizations from local healthcare enterprises to multinational financial institutions measure and improve psychological safety in teams. He specializes in building psychological safety in the Asia Pacific region, including countries with high power distance culture. He has decades of experience at senior levels with companies across the APAC region. He has a PhD in the study of human actions in complex systems. He holds adjunct teaching position at Swinburne University of Technology in Australia. A warm applause for our first guest panelist, Dr. Peter Brace.
Thank you so much, May. Really appreciate the intro. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Virginia. I'm absolutely delighted to be talking today. Let me see if I can share my screen. Hopefully this works.
Oh, Dr. Peter, let's hold it up. Let's hold it up. Yep. Okay. We are very excited. And later, we are going to present that. Okay.
Okay. I was jumping the gun.
We are very excited. No problem. Okay. So let's introduce for the second one, Christine.
Thank you so much, May. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Peter.
For our second guest panelist, she's a global executive and team coach. Top 3 Best Asia Pacific Coach 2021. PCC credentialed coach by the International Coaching Federation, or ICF. More than 12 years of experience in coaching top-level executives from Fortune 500 companies and top corporations in the Philippines. Has coached more than 500 leaders from various industries in the Asia Pacific region. Head of Community Relations of ICF Philippines. Top 100 Filipinos on LinkedIn 2021, Top 1 Filipino Content Creator on LinkedIn 2021, and one of the most influential Filipino women in LinkedIn 2020. Let's give it up for Coach Anda Gusteco.
Thank you, Christine. And for our third guest panelist, okay, she is a global career and leadership coach. She has 16 years of combined corporate and coaching experience, a PCC credential coach by the International Coaching Federation. She's a certified professional transformational coach, a certified master of career services by the National Career Development Association. She has facilitated workshops to 500 professionals. She has coached professionals from Asia Pacific, including Australia, Singapore, and the Philippines. So she's the chair and professional development committee at ICF Philippines and the top 9 out of the 100 most influential Filipinos in LinkedIn. Let's give it up for Coach Curly de Guzman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, May. Good afternoon, Coach Curly. And for our fourth guest panelist, she's the managing partner at Great Place to Work Philippines, lead consultant at Great Place to Work Singapore. Great Place to Work is a global authority on workplace culture. She has 15 years of in-depth experience in both HR consulting and corporate line HR environment across various industries in the Asia Pacific region. She specializes in employer branding, employee experience, and workplace culture. She nearly has 20 years of close partnership with government agencies, SMEs, MNCs, and Fortune 100 companies across industries and geographies. She helps hundreds of organizations in the Philippines build a high-trust workplace culture through Great Place to Work certification. Our fourth guest panelist, Ms. Antoinette Talose.
Hello, Ms. Antoinette, and thank you very much again. A warm of applause for our guest panelists, guys. Where's the virtual claps? Okay, thank you very much. And now we will be having our panel discussion, wherein our guests will each be given 5 minutes to share some insights about our theme for today, which is creating team psychological safety at work. And later we will have our Q&A. Okay, to get started, yes, Dr. Peter, we are very excited for you to talk about psychological safety and why we should care about psychological safety. Yes, Dr. Peter, it's your turn now.
All right, it's my turn. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for interrupting before. Let me share my screen now. Okay. How's that? Is that working?
Yes.
You can see my slide?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, lovely to be here. Really appreciate being invited to talk about this. One of my favorite topics to talk about, but I really want to talk about, well, why should you care about it, right? Why is this so important? Why are there so many searches about it? What difference does it make? We'll talk a little bit about the science behind it, talk about how it works, and talk about some of the things we can do. And our later panelists are going to talk more specifically about how we can improve it. So really looking forward to that as well. So what is this thing, psychological safety, right? Basically, it's when you feel safe to take risks interpersonally. So take risk with other people, right? What you say and what you do in a group of people. That's basically what it's all about. Professor Amy Edmondson defines it like this. So it's a shared belief amongst that group of people that you won't be punished or humiliated if you speak up with your ideas, your questions, your concerns, or even revealing your mistakes. Timothy Clark, who's another researcher, said it's an atmosphere of rewarded vulnerability. So you're rewarded for being vulnerable, showing yourself as you are. I call it respectful accountability, because it's not about letting people do whatever they want. It's about showing respect, but still being accountable for the work we do in a team.
Sorry,
So
sir. We cannot see any of your slides.
Can't see the slides. Oh dear. Okay, let's try again. I apologize for this. Let me go into slide mode and try new share.
Peter, would you like me to share the slides instead?
Maybe that would be safer.
Yeah,
Is that
okay,
Virginia?
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
All right.
I'm sharing your slides now. Just let me know
Okay.
to move. Thank you.
Okay. So let me get back to Zoom so I need to stop sharing, then I can see what you are sharing. Okay, great. Technology is always a challenge, isn't it? All right, so we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so that's what it's all about. And now the next slide. So where does it come from? Next slide, please. Okay, great. So our brain is always trying to predict what is going to happen. That's basically how it works, right? We're scanning the environment to try and figure out what's happening. And of course, we're all different in the way that our minds work. And we're all from different cultures, which have their own standards. And we're in a team. So we're talking here about teams at work, people who've come together to achieve a particular purpose. And all those things work together to decide what we believe is going to happen in our environment. So let's go on to the next slide, because these are the things that impact how we feel. So any threats to our certainty, not knowing what's going to happen next, our autonomy. So if we feel like we're not in control of what we do, a relatedness, which is about belonging to the group that we're in, whether we're treated fairly or not, and how is our status, is that being threatened? Any threats to those domains make us feel fearful, stressed, anxious, and really in pain. It's just our body reacts in the same way as a physical threat. So that's a low state of psychological safety, and we can all understand that, because I bet every one of us here has experienced that in the workplace. All right, I'm not going to even ask you to put a yes, because I can be pretty sure that we've all experienced that. But let's go on to our next slide. So when we feel we know what's coming next, we feel we can manage the way we do our work ourselves, we feel like we're part of the team, we feel that we and all our team members are being treated fairly, we feel like we have some status in the team, like we matter, then we feel psychologically safe. And again, I bet all of us to some degree have experienced that in a good workplace, right? We've felt that way. And when that happens, let's go on to our next slide. When we feel psychologically safe, and again, think back to your own experience when you felt that way, it's easier to learn new things. We feel we can take a risk by trying something new. We really want to contribute to what the team is trying to achieve. We feel we can be ourselves. We can say what we really like and don't like. We can speak up if we have an idea. We're not afraid to talk about it, that we're going to be laughed at or ridiculed. And we even, at the highest levels of psychological safety, feel that we can say, hang on, that's not right. Let's try it this way, or we shouldn't do that. Let's try a better way. We feel safe to actually challenge what the team is doing when psychological safety is high. And I'm sure you can imagine the impact this has on the way that the team performs. because that team is learning, they're fully engaged with what they're doing. People are bringing their whole personality and their own unique perspective to that team. And if they think of a better way of doing something, they're not afraid to speak up about it. That's a high-performing team. And if we go on to our next slide, it actually impacts a number of things that teams do together. So when the right conditions are created, psychological safety emerges from that team, the performance gets better, all our performance indicators can be impacted. We can be more innovative. People feel more included. Employees are more engaged. There are less threats to people's safety, physical and mental. So there are fewer accidents. Client outcomes are better in hospitality, in medical teams, all kinds of teams. Recruitment and retention is better, and even profitability rises when psychological safety rises. And in our final slide, I'll show some examples of how we measure psychological safety. And just an example of a case study in the retail environment where we found there was a correlation between the psychological safety of teams in the retail environment and how many sales they actually closed. So when psychological safety increased, the revenue per store increased by over $30,000 per month on average, leading to a per annum revenue increase of more than $21 million. So that's why, not only because it's the right thing to do, that's why we should care about psychological safety. It's also good for business. Now, I think I've spoken enough. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much, Peter. That's a very thought-provoking topic, and we are only on our first guest panelist, and we already have a lot of learnings. So let's move on to our next guest panelist, Coach Anda Guseco, who will be talking about the role of leaders in creating psychological safety. Coach Anda.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. So a lot of times as a coach, people come to me and say that my team has a problem. They lack accountability or they're not proactive. I feel like I'm doing all the work for them. And I wish they could trust me more. I wish they could open up to me with their problems, but they're not. And the surprising thing is every time they're pointing fingers on the team, when they get me as an executive coach to help them and to help their teams, they're realizing that they are a big factor to contributing to that psychological safety and creating trust. Let me give you an example of one of my clients who is based in the US. So he is a tech startup and he was able to really build this big business on tech. But the problem was, he said that I want to grow my team more, but I feel that they're not accountable. And when I started digging in and trying to find out, so what was making them not accountable? And he said, because they're not doing the things that they have to do. Whenever they have a problem, they just rely on me, or they're not even solving the problem, or they're not, when they have to do something, I feel like they're not volunteering to do it. So the very interesting part about this story is that when I started digging deeper and I started coaching the founder or that business owner, he started realizing it was what he was doing. So what he was doing in meetings was, because he was thinking really fast and wanted to get things done, he'd cut people off and he wouldn't listen to them. And whenever they gave him suggestions, he would always overrule it. And he'd always think that my suggestion is the best suggestion. So there was no listening. There was no, although he said he cared for his people, but he was not showing it. So people felt scared. They they didn't want to be judged, and they didn't feel like they could really freely express themselves or share their ideas. And so when I worked on him with one-on-one coaching, he realized that these are the areas that he really needed to focus on, that he was part of the big problem. And when I worked on him, guess what happened? Because of our coaching sessions, his team became more proactive. They were telling him the challenges. They became actually like thinking partners already, instead of the ones, like he was firefighting all the time. They were more strategic. They were more engaged. They felt that they were acknowledged, and that really helped the business. And he was able to solve many problems of the business that he wasn't able to see. Because with psychological safety, it's all about trust. And if you don't get your people to trust you, they won't be able to open up to you and tell you what the problems are. And as a leader, you need to know what's happening on the ground. A lot of times when I coach leaders, a lot of it is based on, because you're from the top, you're basing it on assumptions. So my first step in to create psychological safety with your teams is to really listen to them. So think about yourself as a leader. How are you in meetings? How are you in one-to-one conversations? Are you the one dominating the conversation, or are you listening more? So if you try this technique, if you listen more, allow them to speak, even if you don't agree with them, acknowledge what they're saying. You don't have to agree with it, but the acknowledgement already makes them feel safe, like you trust them. So it's important to acknowledge their opinions, what they're contributing, and they're going to feel good about themselves and they trust you. The thing also with listening, and it's very important because a lot of times in this fast-paced world, we just keep on doing things or commanding things as a leader. But to be able, like I said, to be able to really understand where your people are coming from, you have to really listen to them. And what's also very important is when you tell your team that, I want you to trust me, I want you to tell me everything. And a lot of times when the leader that I've coached tells me that, like, I've told them already to trust me, but why isn't it happening? Because even if you say that, it has to always align with your actions. You have to be able to demonstrate that you trust them in actions. Meaning, if they say something that you don't agree with, you don't scratch your head, or you don't frown, or you look like you really don't like what they're saying. So it's just a lot of respect. People have different opinions, and you'll be surprised what you can learn from them. So be open to them, listen, try to have no judgment when you hear them out, and that's going to get them to be open to you. And when I work also with teams, if you're a team member and you're not a leader, it's important also to think about the same question. How am I listening to my team members? How am I asking questions? How am I showing them respect? And if, let's say, they make a mistake, do I push them down, or do I just criticize them? It's the language in which you're saying it. So it's very important to be able to say it the right way. You don't have to say it in a way where you're, you look like you're really thinking of that person like in a small way. But each and every person is equal. Each and every person deserves that respect. Each and every person has something important to say. So you have to start with that as a leader. The second one I want to say is it's important to get feedback. So it can be a painful process as a leader to get feedback, but that allows also vulnerability. And vulnerability is so important because when you ask feedback from others, when you ask them, what are the areas you think I can get better as a leader, or how I can improve, that makes them look at you and say that, wow, they're concerned, that this leader is concerned about me. How is he or she being as a leader to me and the team? So that makes them trust you even more. That vulnerability, that willingness to just, okay, what you're saying is important for me. I want to get feedback from you. And I suggest if you do feedback, this is something you do maybe every two months, maybe even because the world around us changes so fast, and so you do have to find out whether are you being the right leader to them, because leadership really is all about people. So you have to be very clear on, am I being that leader that they need at this moment right now? The other one I want to say is that in the kind of context that we have in right now, which is we're still in pandemic, it's important to have conversations on wellness, on their well-being, on checking in, on asking them questions about it. Before, it was just like, hi, how are you? And that's it. But now it's a real question. Hi, how are you? Go deeper, try to find out what they need, how you can support them at work, what are their roles. If it's a woman you're talking to, could be she's taking care of her kid at school, and then she's taking care of her role in the office. So many roles to play. So you have to understand where every person is. Don't assume that you know where they are, that you have the best. They are exactly like you, because each and every person is different. So you have to be able to, again, ask questions and meet them where they are. One last thing I want to say also. So you're probably wondering, how do I do that? So it's also hard to just show up that way. And what if I'm so used to being, telling people what to do? What if I'm very impatient as a leader? The first thing you need to do is to tell yourself, that you care for these people. And what is leadership about? Again, it's about caring for others. It's about being there for others as a leader. And so you have to tell yourself, why do I want to create psychological safety in the first place? And what is this going to bring me? So there has to be value in that to make you want to do it. And every time before you have a meeting or before you have an interaction with someone, change your behavior by telling yourself that, like, what is the reason why psychological safety is so important? If you list down top 3 things, what is that? Right? And so the last one is, as a team member, you need, and as a leader, you need to be able in meetings to set that up, the structure, and ask yourself those questions on why psychological safety is important and how could we set this meeting up before we start to create that psychological safe environment.
Thank you so much, Coach Anda. I'm sure that the leaders who are with us tonight have gained a lot from your short but insightful discussion. This is becoming more and more interesting for all of us. So let's move on to our third guest panelist. We'd like to call on Coach Curly De Guzman to talk about how psychological safety enables career development and growth. Coach Curly.
Yeah, thank you, Christine, and thank you, Peter. Thank you, Anda. You already said a lot, but let me ask you this question first as I start. What would you do if you weren't afraid? You know, for a lot of my clients in our coaching conversations, one thing that's really stopping them for really pushing for big dreams, big goals, something that's new and uncomfortable is that they are scared. Can you type in the chat? What do you think they are scared of? They're actually scared of failing. But you know, when we talk about it further, when we dig deeper, we realize that it's not really failure per se that people are scared of, but they are afraid of what people will say when they fail. And then so what happens next? We tend to settle. Or for some of us, we might be more familiar with we get stuck. Right? So we settle for where we are now, even when we know that we deserve so much more. And even when we know that we are capable of so much more. And then what happens? So we go on with it until we get frustrated, we get burned out. And then we say, okay, it's time to pack my bag and leave and look for another company. But what happens? The cycle goes on and on. Does that sound like a familiar story? So how does psychological safety fit into the picture of career growth and career development? So Peter already shared a lot about what psychological safety is. So what happens in the organization or in the workplace or in a team when there is psychological safety? One, employees will be more curious and they will ask more questions. Why do we ask questions in the first place? Right? We ask questions because we want to know. We ask questions because we want to learn. And what happens when we know and when we learn? We grow. So we grow in our career, we grow as individuals, we grow as professionals. Second, employees will be more willing to try. When they know that it's a safe space, they would be willing to raise their hand, volunteer for projects, take a new projects when they know that their managers have their back, when they know that they are accountable. But even if they make mistakes, it's okay. They will learn for it. They might say, I might fail, but hey, let me give it a try. And we know how getting involved is really very important these days. You've probably heard of career mobility or internal mobility as one of the ways by which we can retain our employees. And when employees get involved, when employees volunteer and try on new projects, apply for new roles within the organization, that's where they gain more experience. That's where they realize, hey, I didn't realize that, I have this skill or I'm good at this. Or, hey, I actually enjoy this activity. Maybe I should, move to this new role within this organization. Third point, when we have psychological safety, employees will be more willing and more encouraged to use their unique styles, their unique talents, and to just show their uniqueness as a person and just show their inner greatness, as I call it, because they wouldn't feel shy. They know that it's inclusive. They know that they are accepted, even if they have ideas that are a bit out of this world or unconventional or unusual. Employees wouldn't hesitate to just show it, to share what they have. And when they're able to share, and to nurture their strengths, their unique talents, that's where they perform better, right? They perform better and they do better in their careers, in their, in profession. And of course, for the organization, that means that the organization will perform better as well. Fourth, and this was mentioned earlier, employees will speak up. So how does this relate to career development? When employees speak up, this means more meaningful career conversations. Employees will not be hesitant to say, you know what, manager, I don't really know how to do this. Or, I need help here. Or I'm not really very happy with my role anymore. And then you can take action from there. And speaking up also includes giving feedback, as Coach Anda said earlier, right? And what's the purpose of giving feedback? We don't give feedback just because you want to put the person down. As we say, feedback is a gift, right? So we give feedback because we want to help the person. We care for that person and we want that person to change. So when it's a psychologically safe environment or a safe space, then we're more encouraged to give feedback. Then we help each other become better. And last, when we have psychological safety, we create wonderful support systems. A psychologically safe space is where people or employees do not hesitate to ask for help, right? And when we ask for help, there would be, of course, also other employees who are willing to help. And there you have now, people mentoring each other, people supporting each other, people coaching each other. And we know that with our careers, it's not just really all about trainings, right? We need experience. That's why it's good if employees are encouraged to try and to get involved. And we also need relationships, right? We need mentors. We need people who we can go to when we have questions. So really, if you want employees to grow in their career, let's start with the basics. Let's start with these simple things. Maybe we don't need yet that sophisticated learning management system or a new subscription to a learning tool or whatnot. Perhaps we could just start by untying the hands and feet of our employees so that they can move freely and clear the space. Make it free for them to be able to move, to express themselves, to speak up, and to discover, how they can grow in their own careers, right? And as Amy Edmondson said, when psychological safety is high and accountability and motivation are also high, that's when we get into our learning zone. And when we get into our learning zone, we know that when we learn, we grow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Coach Curly. That's a very concise discussion on how psychological safety can help us thrive in our workplace. Guys, we are nearing the Q&A session, so we would like to ask you to be ready with your questions. So let's move on with our next guest panelist. We'd like to call on Ms. Antoinette Talosik to share invaluable insights about psychological safety at Great Places to Work. Ms. Tony.
So hi, thanks Christine, and hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here speaking alongside with great speakers. They've said a lot about what I'm gonna cover as well, so I feel like I'm gonna recap the points that was mentioned earlier. But a Great Place to Work, what we do is that we assess, recognize, and celebrate companies that have great workplace culture. So basically, we study what makes companies great. And we find that there are many factors that makes an organization great. But what we also find is that at its core, which was also mentioned earlier, and I also saw that in the chat, at the core of great workplaces is trust. We believe that a great workplace is one wherein you trust the people that you work for, you enjoy the people that you work with, and you have pride in the work that you do. So we are all going through rapid pace of change, constant disruptions. Organizations all over the world are facing that, and we have to deal with it. And with all these changes and constant disruptions, it has become even more crucial for companies to have high-performing teams. And that's why I like today's topic. It's not just like psychological safety, but why is it important when it comes to teams? High-performing teams, these are teams that are not defined by who their members are, if they have very good, high accolade But really, high-performing teams are defined by how they treat one another. Members of high-performing teams, they feel secure with one another. They are able to admit mistakes. They show vulnerability. They're comfortable to take on other roles. But this only happens when employees experience psychological safety. What we observed is that employees more consistently experience psychological safety when with best workplaces. These are organizations that we work with where we see that they have high trust workplace culture. And also in our study, psychological safety actually refers to the employee's perception of having a mentally and emotionally healthy workplace, as well as having leaders who recognize honest mistake. We found that psychological safety drives people to contribute more, to take more risk, to perform better as a team. These are, factors that we've heard other speakers share earlier. But these factors, psychological safety, we find is that it's even more important than other factors such as remuneration, recognition, and development opportunities when you're creating high-performing teams. And so if psychological safety is that important, we all wanted to know, how can I, build psychologically safe environment at my workplace? What are the drivers of psychological safety that we are finding in high-performing teams and also in best workplaces? So there are three things that we find in our research. One is there is behavioral integrity of leaders. Second, when employees experience having supportive organizational practices. And third, it's the quality of relationship networks within the organization. Let me briefly go through each one of these with you. So first is the first driver, the behavioral integrity of leaders. This pertains to employees' experience of management delivering on promises, where management's action matches their words and they are perceived as honest and ethical in the business. All this can be linked to employees' overall trust in management and feelings of security. So in organizations where employees lack trust in management, there is risk aversion, which negatively impacts creativity, innovation, and productivity, both at individual and team levels. Our study also shows that in organizations where leaders are perceived as role models, where they are trusted to act on the feedback, they don't just ask for feedback, but they actually act on the feedback that they received. They are perceived to be good. They have people's welfare at the top of their priority. There are also high positive feelings of psychological safety among their employees and their teams. The second driver of psychological safety that we are seeing is having supportive organizational practices. So there are two clear indicators of having supportive organizational practices. One is employees feel encouraged to balance their work life and personal life. And second, which Coach Curly mentioned earlier, is that when they are offered training or development to further themselves. So we all know and we have all experienced how work and personal life have become more integrated during this pandemic. And many companies provide various programs about work-life balance. In fact, that's not the issue. A lot of organizations provide work-life programs. But really what differentiates the best workplaces from the rest is having a culture where people are encouraged. They're encouraged to look after their well-being. And that is when the leaders themselves role model it. So with the increasing focus on well-being and mental health, this has become a significant factor when it comes to your employee retention and your overall employer reputation. Likewise, also in many parts in Asia, we see training and development as a key lever for attracting talents. The third driver of psychological safety that we are seeing is the strength of relationship networks within the organization. So intuitively, we know that relationship matter anywhere, right? Personal and even at work. And at Great Place to Work, what we believe is that it's the quality of relationship in your organization that makes it a great place to work. Our daily interaction, it may positively or negatively affect our motivation levels and the overall state of our mind. So actually there are two of the three key relationships that you would have in your organization is one with your immediate supervisor as well as other leadership people in your organization. And the second is the quality of your relationship with your colleagues. We find that mutual respect between individuals, regardless of their role and hierarchy, this is a powerful means of establishing trust in the organization. One way to build this is when leaders genuinely seek and respond to suggestions and ideas, which we heard Coach Anda spoke about earlier. But on the other hand, relationship amongst colleagues, this blossom when people care about each other. It happens when there's a sense of personal concern between individuals. And this serves as a building block where individuals and teams feel secure enough to take risks and be themselves. We heard, I think it was Mayor Christine, one of them say earlier that her definition of a psychologically safe place to work is one wherein you can be yourself. So this happens when you feel that people care about me here in this organization. Many great organizations have invested in creating an environment where employees feel secure, to speak their minds, to make mistakes even, and to be themselves without fear or penalty or repercussion. And so there are many HR leaders and even business leaders in this virtual room. So we all know that it's not easy to create a psychologically safe place to work. But with, what are the other benefits then of having a psychologically safe place to work besides having high performing teams? So what we found is that there are two other things more than, amongst many others. One is that when you have psychologically safe place to work, it creates a deep sense of pride in your employees. They feel that sense of pride for being a part of your organization. And there's also a general sentiment that your company is a great place to work. So when there's psychologically safe place in your organization, your employees are actually proud to tell others that they work for your company and they look forward to coming to work there every day. In our survey, we do have this one overarching statement which says, taking everything into account, this company is a great place to work. And what we find is that those organizations whose employees believe that they are in a great place to work, they also rated their organization high in psychological safety. So just a quick recap, great workplaces, they establish psychological safety for their people by creating an environment wherein their leaders have behavioral integrity, there is solid organizational support, and healthy relationship networks in their organization. And it warrants you to create one because it's not just for having high-performing teams. It also creates that deep sense of pride in your employees and creates that perception, that experience that they are in a great place to work.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tony. Thank you so much for generously sharing with us your actual observations on how psychological safety in those GPTW certified organizations. And thank you as well for our other guest panelists for the knowledge share. A very interesting brain-picking session we are having right now. And for the much-awaited Q&A session, we will be starting soon. Have you listed all your questions? You should have, because this forum is all for you. We will be raising our questions about psychological safety, and as Miss Virginia have said, this is a very psychologically safe virtual forum we will be having, so please do raise your questions and our guest panelists will be happy to answer them. Okay, let's start with the first question. The question is from Miss Jacqueline Fe Louie. She didn't include the name of the panelists to answer, so everyone may answer. Okay, the question is, let me read it first. I'm curious if there are elements of psychological safety unique to Filipinos. That's her question. Are there elements of psychological safety unique to Filipinos?
I can answer that. So there are several things I see, because we're also concerned about relationships. I mean, that's a plus for us because we care about people. But in the same way that we are concerned about relationships, sometimes that's also a block, because we want to put always our best foot forward, right? And it makes us not afraid to be able to speak up and to be able to raise challenges, and especially if it's difficult things, because we're afraid, maybe I see a lot of fear coming up. So it's really I go back again to what I said earlier. It's really also the role of the leader to create that psychological safe environment, especially for here in the Philippines, where I see that fear as common to be able to speak up because for fear of the boss getting mad at them or judging them.
Thank you so much, Coach Anda. For our next question, this is for all the panelists. Okay, let me read it in verbatim. This is from Jeff Manhilot. There have been several research showing that too much protectiveness hurts the development of children. We're talking about adults here, aren't we? Where do we draw the line of safety versus being too protective in the name of psychological safety? Who gets to decide what is just enough and what is too much? Would you like me to repeat the question? Where do we draw the line of safety versus being too protective in the name of psychological safety? Who gets to decide what is just enough and what is too much?
Do you want me to talk to that a little?
I'm sorry, Peter.
Sure.
I mean, I think the research that you're talking about there is about a lack of resilience. So if people are protected from, all outcomes, they don't have an opportunity to develop resilience, which is an important part of our personality. So psychological safety is about enabling a safe environment for people to work in where they can be themselves, but it's not about protecting them from the responsibility of their position. It's not about removing accountability from that role. It's about keeping people accountable for what they need to achieve, but doing so in a respectful way.
I may add to that. I think one of the questions asked is that who gets to decide what is enough, right? Okay, so I want to put in context. I'm not a psychologist, so my sharing is more of like coming from being a mom to my 8-year-old son and being a leader to my team. And I think I also heard Coach Anda mention this earlier, that you need to know the person. Each individual would have their own capacity. So what may be too much for someone may be just enough or still too little for another. So it is important for leaders to get to know your team members individually as a person. That person would tell you what is enough and what's not enough, right? I find, like in my leadership journey, I find that the things that I learn, I also get from motherhood. So it's like, it's my son who tells me what he can or cannot do, but then you are also able to provide that stretch because you want your team member to grow. It's that having that kind of open communication and that authentic, that relationship that would allow you to determine what is enough and what else can you do.
Yeah, I want to connect to continue to what you were saying also, Tony, because if you're wondering what is the right time or when is it too much, I think it's also important to just say it out loud and ask whether is this okay with you, or how are you feeling about this, or and giving them the space to when they're ready, then they're ready. When they're not ready, then don't push it. So that also creates a psychological safe environment. Doesn't mean that you have to be completely honest today to create that psychological safe environment. It doesn't do that. So you have to be able to make them meet them where they are and respect where they are, and give them that space. And if you can't figure it out, I think the best way to do is to really ask them. And ask them if what you're doing is okay or if it's too much. Then you'll know.
Just one more thing, a couple more things to add. When I think of psychological safety, it's not really this big, rocket science concept. For me, it really just boils down to trust and respect. So it's not really about being too protective. And maybe some leaders might be thinking it could, be they might be being too permissive, right? That they're being too lax with their employees. But psychological safety is not something that is standalone. Accountability and motivation are also part of the picture. So it's not like, if I apply psychological safety to solve all my problems and will be able to perform very well, it needs to be taken together with that accountability and the motivation.
Thank you, Coach Curly, and to all the panelists. This next question is coming from our chat box. So, can you explain more about high power distance culture? And as a leader, how do you encourage psychological safety without undermining your authority? Who wants to answer from our guests?
Do you want me to talk about high power distance, and someone else can take the other part?
Sure.
So power distance is the extent to which people expect and accept steep hierarchies. So in a high power distance culture, leaders tend to be more respected, and in society generally, the elderly are respected more, leaders are respected more, given more deference. So an example, the highest power distance culture in the world, according to the research that's been done, is Malaysia. Indonesia and the Philippines follow close behind. China is pretty high. France is also very high in power distance, a score of about 70 or 80. The lowest power distance country is Austria, which is around 20, I think. So there's a huge difference between cultures and the way that they view authority and hierarchy.
Thank you, Dr. Peter. And who wants to answer the other question? Like, without undermining your authority, how can you show psychological safety?
I get that question a lot from leaders, because they say that some people say, like, it's working well anyway. I'm strong, I'm very direct, and I can command attention also and tell people what to do. But in everything, actually, there always has to be a balance. It can't be too much of that. So it also has to be, you have to also look at yourself, not only as directing or telling people what to do, but you also have to look at the other side of leadership, where you have to listen, there's trust and respect. And when you're able to create that balance, it doesn't take the other side of leadership, where you have to also be strong. And I remember, like, a leader I was coaching before, he was very strong. And a lot of people were and very good at what he did. He was like a COO of a company. And a lot of people were also resigning. And so when he was able to create that balance, I said, I don't want to change you. I think it's good that you're strong. So he kept that. But he also had to recognize that, wait, I need to listen to what my people think is important, or how I can help them, or how I can support them. When he started doing that, even if he was coming in strong, and even if he was himself in that way, there was still a lot of respect. And I got that because I asked his team, how has he changed? And they said, he's able to balance it now. So even if, like, he's upset about some, because before they felt insulted when he's upset. So he also learned how to choose the right words and really customize it to who he's talking to. So I think, like, a balance, you don't have to lose that, but you also have to look at the other side of leadership, where there's care and, building trust, and look into the relationships.
Just to add to what Coach Ando said about balance, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of situational leadership, right? Where depending on the person that you're managing, if ability and the motivation of the people, you adjust also your leadership style. And depending on the situation, of course, in the time of crisis, that is the time where you have to be more direct and, commanding. If you imagine the house is burning, right, you can't, like, okay guys, what do we do? So those moments are when you have to exercise that. Another thing, maybe for those who are wondering, I'd also like to maybe do a self-check, like, as a leader, because there seems to be this perception that when I am empathic as a leader, or when I practice psychological safety, it takes away my authority. Maybe it's not an and, it's not an or thing, like it's either this or an either or thing. It's either I'm authoritative, or I have authority, or I'm I create psychologically safe space, because these two might, be able to coexist.
Totally agree with that. And if a leader wants to control everything, I would say they're doing it wrong, right? Because you cannot control innovation. You want people to come up with their own ideas. You don't just want them to repeat your ideas. Otherwise, what's the point, right? So yes, you still have your authority, but you want your team to take control of their own destiny to some extent.
I saw in the chat, someone said, I think that's Tyrone, that authority is always given. I find that too, especially in the Philippine culture. Like we grew up having to, we grew up being taught to be respectful of someone who's older than us in authority, our leaders, our bosses. Like it's a given. If you, sometimes to the extent that if you say something, you're being, labeled as being disrespectful. But the reverse actually is very important as well. It's like when we do our survey, there's one question that wherein employees can, it's an open-ended question, wherein what is like one thing that would make your company even better place to work. And I've never, with the thousands of responses I've read, and not once have I read someone saying that, oh, I want to have that power distance. I want my leader to be more in authority than he is right now. It's often, I want to be closer. I want to have that opportunity to speak to my leader. I want, for my leader to collaborate with me. So yeah, I think there is a situation wherein that authority is meant to be practiced. There are there's some nature of work wherein it's more important than others, but overall, what we believe is that having that genuine connection, it's always the human touch that's very important when your leader has that personal connection that makes it a psychologically safe place. And yeah, a great workplace for your employees as well.
Can I just add one last thing really quick? I think as leaders, if you're leaders out there listening, it's good to ask yourself the question, if I'm coming out too strong, or if it's imbalanced that way, I'm too strong, what am I missing out? So maybe you're missing out on, building that relationship, like Tony said, and not being able to hear what the real problems are. So, and it's important as a leader, if you want to be a really good decision maker, to hear those problems out and to know what they are. And you might, and maybe some leaders feel like building relationship is kind of soft. But the thing is, if you build that relationship, if you know how your people operate, and you can really help them maximize your strength, and there will be greater contribution to the company, and that will bring you to that ROI, or you're looking for the business results, it really translates into business results. And I've seen that time and time again. When people have focused on their people, built their relationships, and created trust, there is a direct impact on the business.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your answers. I have another question here, which I think resonates very well to team members. This is from Ian Santos. Question is, what is the best way to survive or manage a culture without psychological safety, or a boss who does not practice psychological safety in the team? Anyone can answer.
That's a very good question. Because what do you do if the boss doesn't want to change, right? And then you're there. Well, I have like some tips, and maybe if you're the team member, if the boss is a problem, and if it's hindering performance, or you can't, it's really causing effect on the business. I don't know if you can bring it up with someone else, maybe with HR, or someone else who in the leadership team that you trust, that can help that person, and coaching works. Curly Naidu coaching, so executive coaching really works, and then maybe that person just needs to see that. and does not realize it. But there are people also who are too strong and not open to change. But I think that what you need to do is to just really raise that up with either HR or someone from the organization at top management, so they know and they're aware of what's going on. Or and then maybe maybe something else is you can try to give feedback and be very factual, talk about the effects it has maybe on the team or the business effects. Try to speak in the language of your leader. So speak to what's important for that leader or that boss, and maybe that boss will just hear you out and realize what it's doing to the team.
Anyone wants to add?
Just to add,
Coach Shirley?
yeah, because I know there are a lot of leaders here. We also do not want to put all the pressure on the leaders. It's actually everyone's responsibility to create psychological safety. Like, even if the leader practices it, but if everyone in the team, let's say, laughs when someone makes a mistake, or does not practice inclusivity, then psychological safety still doesn't exist. So I agree with all the tips that Coach Anda said, but also something for us to think about, that it's also our own responsibility, even if we're not leaders, to practice psychological safety in the workplace.
Yeah,
Okay.
all great
Dr.
advice.
Peter.
The only thing I would add is, if you can relate something to the performance of the team, right? Something that the team can achieve better, because that is in the self-interest of the boss, right? If his team is achieving better, then he's going to look better. He or she will look better, right? So if you have an idea that relates to something that will improve the performance of the team, maybe that's the place to start. And a suggestion about how that might be done, maybe even suggest just to try it and see if performance improves, because if it's related to something that the boss is measured on, then they may have greater interest in actually doing something different.
All right. I think that also answered one of the questions in our chat, like how to start up psychological safety, and she's working with the government. So I hope you catch that. And there's one question here, another question. What steps can leaders and team members do to achieve psychological safety in a remote work arrangement? And do you agree that in the hybrid work arrangement, it is more challenging to achieve psychological safety?
I think it is, but there has to be, I think, constant communication. And communication is a lot also about not face to face. I mean, like, you have to see each other in Zoom rather than, you may have text, but then through messages and in the phone, you can't really see the expression of the person, and you can't feel the person across the room. Of course, it's different if you see someone live, but I encourage meetings where you can see each other. Especially if it's like a one-on-one meeting or a team meeting, to be able to read the room. And it's not just like let's say if I'm a leader here talking to everyone, I'm not just blabbing and saying this is what you need to do, but you're really observing the reaction of the people in the room. And you have to be able to notice what's being said and what's not being said. And it's really important to understand that. So actually what I do as a team coach, it's a lot about that, like observing meetings, observing how people interact with each other, observing what are the constraints in the team, because a lot of people may have that in a group. So it's important to just have that, I think, in the hybrid work situation. And I think an important topic to always talk about is the well-being. That's something that was added, right? In 2020, when the pandemic hit, there's a lot of talk about well-being, and it's still there. So I think don't stop asking about everyone's well-being, how they are, maybe have one-on-one conversations, because sometimes people will not open up that much if it's a group versus a one-on-one conversation. So have group conversations, but have one-on-one conversations as well.
In our survey, there's one dimension which we measure called impartiality. During the past 2 years, we've noticed that the scores on impartiality in question includes something like there's politicking or backstabbing here. The scores have dropped, negative, a lot, more negative perception around that particular dimension. There are other statements around impartiality. It's not just that statement that I gave as an example. So to me, that really shows that it's more difficult to create that psychologically safe environment, or to show to build trust when you're working remotely. You took that very important factor of FaceTime, which Coach Anne has mentioned. And so a lot of organizations were able to provide even better experience for their employees in this setup. What they did is they doubled up when it comes to communication with their employees. Managers having more one-on-one sessions with their employees, having a lot of activities wherein employees are encouraged to collaborate. And the Filipinos are very creative, right? And in fact, this is one of the first things that Best Workplaces did at the onset of the pandemic. First one is to make sure that your employees are safe, stay at home. Second is make sure that they're able to continue being productive at work. They have all the tools and resources that they need. And I think the third thing that they did is really make sure that there are available platforms for people to connect with their leaders and with each other. Those creative ideas, like even having TikTok, contest, and having birthday celebrations online, a lot of those things would help. But I think it really boils down to authentic, again, and you hear us say this again and again, authentic relationship, authentic communication between leader and your employee. I want to give us an example of what I think it was Coach Curly who posted it on LinkedIn just recently, to remember a lot of conversations that we're having with our employees, for them to feel that, that you truly care for them, is when you remember what they mentioned. So it could be something just about what happened to their son, to their family. But if you bring it up again, the next conversation, that would show that you truly care for them, and that would help strengthen the relationship that you have, even with the limitations that we have given the current situation.
Thank you so much, everyone, for all your tips for a very relevant topic right now. Everyone's almost a majority of the workforce is working from home. Now, I have two questions here. I'm just going to combine them. It's about, because we're talking about psychological safety, and most of the leaders, because they do part of their responsibility, apart from creating a psychological safe workplace for their team, is they also have a responsibility on the business side, right? And earlier, Peter, you showed a slide wherein profit, how psychological safety can affect profit. I'm just going to combine them to one question. So how can leaders balance business needs with the psychological safety of their employees? Peter, would you like to start?
So balancing the business success with psychological safety, it almost sounds like one is working against the other, but in fact they work together, right? Because psychological safety is not just about everyone being happy. It's about people being accountable to perform as well, but being in a psychologically safe environment to do that, right? So improving psychological safety is going to improve business performance. There's really no doubt about that.
Anyone else who would like to add?
I totally agree to what Peter said. It's really a balancing act. Because what we see is that when you take care of your people will take care of your business. We have a lot of those examples, especially during the pandemic. One of our clients in the BPO industry in the Philippines, at the onset of the pandemic, their employees volunteered to work on site. So that means that they had to live in a hotel for a number of weeks or even months until everything was settled and set up. But this group of employees did that, even separating themselves from their families for some time, because they need to make the business continue. They wanted to help the operations and for the business to continue. And their colleagues actually called them as the heroes, because if they didn't do that, a business will not continue. Everyone will lose their jobs. So when employees feel that they're taken care of, when the time comes, they will also take care of your business.
I think what's important in a business is that they need to feel the organization, right? So there's that human aspect of the organization where it's not just a structure. There are people who operate in the organization. That's why you can't just focus on the business, and eventually people are not going to be happy. Maybe they're going to leave, or they're just working for the sake of working. So you want to be able to create an environment where there's a lot of, like, it's felt, the organization is felt. And maybe that's a question that you can ask yourselves, like, are we creating an environment like that for people? Are they able to align with what's important for the business? Is it also important for them? Are we listening to their needs? So people focus is very important. Even in Gallup's research, it showed that if you focus a lot on your people as managers, as leaders, and you care for them, that really translates to business results. So there's better care for the customers. There's even better care for one another. So it's really creating that environment for them where they can really thrive as individuals.
Yeah, maybe just to add, I want to go back to what I said earlier. The question seemed like it's coming from a mindset that like Peter said, that it feels like we're seeing this as two separate things, but actually they are things that go together. And I'm okay, sounds like a coaching session. Like, I'm sensing that there's this feeling that if I let go of my control, the business might fail. So I encourage you, like I know Coach Anda kind of mentioned this also earlier. You might have that blind spots, or maybe there's something with that mindset that you need to look into and see, what might be stopping you. Where is that resistance of letting go of too much control coming from? Because maybe there's something there that might open up, and that might help you be able to practice. Just give it a try. Give it a try. I met some leaders who were in that state, when really just used to telling people what to do. They learned coaching, and then they tried practicing it. They tried listening and connecting more. And after, 1 week or 2 weeks, when we met them again, they said, you know what, it feels good. They came up with so many more ideas. They were happier. They felt more connected, and they felt more valued. So just give it a try.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for your answers. We will now be asking our guest panelists for their final thoughts, and also to allow them to invite everyone for any upcoming events and how you can reach them for any collaborations. Let's begin with Coach Anda.
Well, thank you, everyone. I learned a lot from my co-panelists as well. And this is a topic that's very close to my heart. So I just want to leave with that last question, that you can't just have business strategy. There has to be people strategy connected with business strategy. So it's very important to create that psychologically safe environment, and to ask yourself, if you're a leader in listening to this, like, how can you contribute to that? And as team members also, how can you contribute to the psychological safety of the team? So it works both ways. And so what I do is just a little bit about what I do. So I enable leaders to build their dream teams. And it really revolves, one of the pillars really is the psychological safety part that we're talking about today. So I do that through team coaching and one-on-one executive coaching. I just want to also say that because Women's Month is coming up, I'm going to have a program for women. I'm going to post that on LinkedIn. So connect with me on LinkedIn. The title of the workshop is Empowered. So it focuses on the challenges of women and the many roles that we play. And it also helps you just take control of your life with the many challenging things happening around you.
Thank you so much, Coach Anda. Let's now call on Coach Pearly.
Hi, so I think I just want to end with something simple. Psychological safety is just about really being human and trusting and respecting also other people. So Nothing, no special skills needed. Just go back to listening, to being human, to being vulnerable, to being authentic, and you'll be surprised that you're already creating that psychologically safe space. So again, I'm Curly. I am a career and leadership coach. I help leaders as well as mid-career professionals thrive through their careers, and I've talked a lot about how psychological safety can enable growth and development in careers. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is learning and growing, and we know that that psychologically safe space can really enable that. So subscribe to my newsletter. I have a bi-weekly newsletter, Career Agility, where I talk about also those things that we talked about today: conversations, being open, talking to your boss, and also growing in your career. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Coach Curly. Let's now call on Ms. Antoinette Talosig of Great Place to Work Philippines.
Thanks. Again, pleasure to be here. It was a very good conversation. A lot of good questions as well. We hope you found that helpful for you. I guess my last thing that I just want to say is, again, at the core of great workplaces, really trust, which we've heard many times over in this session. And once your employees experience the trust with you and with their colleagues, that also helps create psychological safety. It builds that sense of pride for being a part of your organization. It helps your employer brand, and it gives that feeling that, that experience that they are a part of a great place to work. At Great Place to Work, what we do is, our mission is to help build a better world by helping organizations become great places to work for all. We assess, recognize, and celebrate companies that have great workplace culture to our Philippines Best Workplaces list that we publish annually. And so I want to invite all of you to join us on March 23 at 2 p.m. It will premiere on YouTube. We are going to announce the 25 companies that make the Philippines Best Workplaces 2022. So we hope to see you there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Antoinette. Let's now call on our psychological safety consultant, Dr. Peter Brace.
Thank you. This has been a great session. I loved hearing about how psychological safety is important to making a great place to work. That was so interesting. And to spend time with two amazing coaches too, that's fantastic. I felt like I got a free coaching session today as well. So that was great. I help organizations measure and improve psychological safety. I've got a workshop coming up next week, just 2.5 hours, that talks about the relationship between inclusion in organizations and innovation and how that's based on psychological safety. If I may, I'll post a link to that in the chat. So if anyone's interested, go and have a look. But thanks again for the opportunity to participate. Really appreciate it and enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you again to our amazing lineup of guests for tonight. Actually, to all the guests, there were a lot of questions we cannot accommodate because of the time. But yes, Tyron says, can we connect with you? One-to-one meeting? Of course, yes. Please follow and connect with them. They would love to talk with you. And we cannot let the session end without a photo op. Okay, so please, guys, please open your cameras. Switch on your cameras for our photo opportunities. Thank you again for sending your questions, and we will get back to you. Okay. So, smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Hold on. One more. So we have a lot of attendees for tonight. So 2 over 3. Oh, no one's opening the camera. Can you guys, do you want to open your camera? Okay. Okay, maybe some are a bit shy. So let's do it again for the first group. Okay. Okay, people are opening up. Hold on. 1 minute more and we'll overtime. Okay. Okay, ready? Smile. Wow. That's a wacky post from Dr. Peter Brace. Okay. Yes, thank you all very much, Christine. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for your support, for attending tonight's forum, especially for our guest panelists. And thank you to Ms. Virginia Bautista again for this initiative. We'd like to turn the mic to her for any closing remarks.
Thank you so much. I really just want to say thank you to all of you who joined us this afternoon or tonight. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Coach Anda, Coach Curly, and Tony. We really, really appreciate all of your insights tonight. So I'll see you all again in the next LinkedIn Local Philippines. That'll be this March. Thank you so much and good night, everyone.
Have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for our panelists.
Thank
for the
you.
host. All right.